This is the first video in a series talking about the importance of biodiversity in your aquarium. The first thing to keep in mind is that more is better than less. Unless you're talking about food. But if you're talking about variety, more is better than less. One of the difficulties with maintaining an aquarium rests in the very act of trying to keep it clean. Because when you try to keep an aquarium clean, what you're doing is removing waste product, detritus, mulm, any of the other elements that are in the tank that contribute to biodiversity. And so you're really fighting against yourself in the process of trying to keep an aquarium clean. Nature is not clean. Nature, rather, is in balance. It is harmonious. When it is not in balance, when it is inharmonious, that's when there are problems. Those problems exist in a fish tank primarily when there is inadequate biodiversity. By that I mean, for example, in a brand new tank, where there really is very little that's alive. You put some plants in, some fish, maybe a little dirt or some dirty sand, some sand or gravel, and you start feeding. And what it does is create, it feeds the one or two kinds of bacteria that are in that tank. The one or two kinds of microscopic life that's in that tank. And they bloom and they blossom and they go completely out of control and wind up very often creating stress for the fish and the plants. That's why fish die in a tank, because there is inadequate diversity, biological diversity in that tank to manage and control the various life forms that are in the tank. So what do you do about this? Well, you want to keep in mind as you're setting your tank up, as I said in the beginning, more is better. The more life you can put in the tank, particularly microscopic life, little tiny animals, the things that are hard to see. Now, if they're hard to see, how do you know you're doing that? Well, one of the ways you know is by bringing in life from some other aquarium or some natural environment. From another aquarium, you remove some sand from the top of the tank and spread it in your tank. You move a piece of driftwood, some rocks, a filter cartridge, or a sponge filter. You bring those things into your tank, and in so doing, you're bringing in a variety of bacteria from that other tank, thereby increasing the diversity of life that is in the tank. A tank like this one alongside me has been set up for nearly 10 years. It has not had the substrate cleaned, changed, or otherwise particularly messed with in that whole 10 years. Now, very few of these plants have been in here that long. That's because this is a pet shop and we sell the things in our tank. So we've had a wide variety of plants and fish that have passed through this tank over the years. And are able at this point, as you can see, to be able to put pretty much whatever we want to in the tank and expect that it's going to be okay. And it is. It's fine. The plants are, with one or two rare exceptions, doing extremely well. The exceptions are those kinds of plants that some of the fish in here like to eat. And so they've got them cropped down. They've eaten the leaves, but only one or two. Really not many at all. I can look, I think it looks like the Labuigia. And these are water wisteria. Water wisteria. The bacopa is fine. Swords are fine. Frog spawn is fine. Most everything else. The wisteria has been eaten. And so we, well, there's quite a lot in here. they've actually only gone after one of the plants, or one of the little groups of plants, and they've eaten that about down to the nub. Now I can see new growth, so it's possible this will come back. We'll have to wait and see. The likelihood is that whoever has been eating it is going to be especially interested in eating the buds, because they'll even taste better. So the plant might not make it at all, but we'll see how it works out. So biodiversity. Another way to achieve biodiversity is to go out into the field. And by the field, I mean a local pond, a local ditch, a local stream, creek, a local rain puddle, any body of water with water that's standing in it for a period of time, not just a puddle that is here one day and gone tomorrow. Something that's holding water for months at a time. What you will find in those bodies of water is waste material like leaves, little twigs, things that are breaking down, deteriorating, forming a cover. If you collect some of that cover, some of those old leaves, the old twigs, whatever it is laying on the bottom, collect a handful of that and bring it back, and do not be afraid to put it in your tank. It will dramatically increase the biological productivity of the tank, the diversity in the tank, and thereby increase the harmony in the tank. You will stand less of a chance of having disease by doing that than if you do not do it. So keep that in mind. Biodiversity is the solution to many of the problems that we have in our aquariums. The tanks are not sufficiently diverse to be able to equitably manage all of the things that are living in it. So there's very little in the way of harmony. It gets out of balance very easily. You create that balance by adding more life forms, more plants, more variety of fish, a variety of food, and most especially a variety of microscopic life that can come in all kinds of ways, certainly from other tanks, but also from the wild. Do not be afraid of bringing in animals and microscopic life from nature. You're trying, after all, to keep a natural environment. You're trying to set up something that looks natural. Why not make it natural? All of the fish that you buy in the store started out as wild fish living in somebody's backyard, somebody somewhere in the world. Maybe not that particular fish, but certainly the ancestor of that particular fish was at one time in the wild, in nature, living in the wild, living in nature. And so there is in the genetic makeup of every one of our fish a predilection for living wild, for living in nature, for living in an environment that is a bountiful and a rich environment, not a deprived environment, not one that's filled with chemicals that kills this thing, that thing, or the other thing. Don't do that. Don't get into the business of trying to kill what you don't like. If there's something you don't like, find something else that will control it. Find something else that will control it. And if you don't know what that is, experiment. Unless the algae that you don't like so much is toxic to your fish and is killing them, there's no need to destroy it. Simply find another way to balance it, to bring it into submission, to get control of it by using other kinds of plants, other kinds of animals. Snails are a great, what's the word I want? Not unifier, but controller. They're a great way to be able to control things in your tank that you don't like very much. Snails have a way of not liking the same sorts of things you don't like, which is why you don't want to get rid of your snails. If you have an explosion of snails, it's because something is wrong in the tank. Your overfeeding is what likely is wrong. And so you're getting a sudden explosion of Malaysian trumpet snails because you've got so much food in there that they're just exploding in their population in an effort to keep your tank from crashing. You want to control them? Control your feeding. Now, let's talk about that for a minute, because we've been talking about balance and harmony. One of the principles of balance and harmony is the ability of the life forms in the tank to nurture and support by feeding each other. And so they thrive in a kind of web in which they're feeding each other, in which they're living off each other. There's very little you really need to do if you have a rich environment to make it richer at all. Simply putting food in that tank is not going to make it better. It simply provides an excess of a certain kind of nutrient that is going to cause an explosion of one thing or another that will throw the whole system out of balance. The less food you put in your tank, the healthier your fish are going to be. And that goes for all kinds of fish. It goes for big Oscars as well as little tiny neons. The less food you feed them, the more natural they will be, the longer they will live, and the healthier they will be. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about starving fish to death, but keep this in mind, and let me illustrate it with the case in point. I had a fish room years ago with a little 20-gallon tank sitting on the floor. It had a few plants in it, some dirt or something. It had water in it. It was about half full. It had a ray of sunlight that would come into it for an hour or so once a day. It was out of the way. I didn't pay any attention to it. I just kind of ignored it. One day, a Jack Dempsey, about 2 inches long, fell into that tank. I looked around, didn't see him, couldn't find him on the floor, forgot about it, and went on. 1 year later, 12 months later, I found that Jack Dempsey in that tank. He had doubled in size to 4 inches. There was no food. I put no food in that tank at all for 12 months. And he not only lived, he thrived. He grew. He was a healthy, beautiful fish when I took him out. So what was he eating? He was eating what was living and growing and thriving in that tank. Certainly a lot of algae. But fish are little creatures. They can eat things tinier than you and I can see. There were little copepods in there, to be sure, little rotifers, little tiny animals, little worms growing perhaps, lots of algae certainly. And he lived on that, thrived on that, grew on that very naturally, very normally. He was a big healthy fish at the end of a full year with no food at all in that tank. How can that be? The tank provided the food for him because the tank had created a balance such that his waste produced more nutrients for the things that he wanted to eat. And it formed a web, a cycle. There undoubtedly were some insects that fell into that water over time that added a little more nutrient to the mix. So it wasn't exactly a zero-sum game. Perhaps a moth, perhaps a roach, perhaps some ants, who knows what. There certainly were little insects that fell into it. There were things in the air floating in, different kinds of plants, different spores that fell in and began to grow, that provided nutrition for him. Nature has a way of providing for its own. You do not need to get in the way of that. What you need to do is provide the means for that to happen. So that's going to be the principle we're going to be working on. We're going to be teaching you how to create that venue, to create that medium, to create that system that will allow all of the life in it to flourish, for it to be a genuine web of life, for it to support itself with very little intervention on your part. Thank you for participating in this. Feel free to add comments, to be a part of the conversation. I look forward to being able to be in communication with you. Now, this video is only going to be available to Patreon subscribers. So we'll be talking about it more in our live streams, but welcome to you who are in Patreon. This is just for you. We appreciate your support and your encouragement, and we look forward to doing more with you. Take care for today. This is Father Fish. Be sure to tune in to our morning streams on YouTube, 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, and on weekends, Saturday and Sunday at 6 in the evening. Bye for now.